what we're going to be talking about today, and we have a presentation about it, but what I really want to do is I want to start off by reminding everybody that Isabel, my friend Isabel here, and Silas, who you'll see in a little bit, are three things. One, they are amazing, intelligent humans, flat out. Two, they are trustworthy partners and people I rely on and friends. And three, and least important, they're kids. In order of importance, that's how I see them. So I want the world to understand, and if you saw my presentation earlier today about the UN Sustainable Development Goals, you'll know I believe passionately that we need to treat people as people and not define them in ways that are convenient for us. I gave Isabel, Silas, Cecilia, and Robert an opportunity this summer to be there for me, and they showed up. And this is the story of how they showed up. So without further ado, do you mind if I start the presentation?
No, you can go right ahead.
So, hello, I'm Jim Bruner, and I'm presenting tonight virtually with Isabel, and even more meta virtually with Silas. Silas couldn't be here tonight, but Isabel is, and I want everyone on YouTube and everyone listening. Oh, Silas! Hooray! All right, buddy, best behavior. Don't go off screen. I'm so happy you're here. All right, well, then let's go. We're on it. Okay, so the question we're asking tonight is, I have to move this out of the way because I can't see it. Isabel, can you read it? I can't.
It says, becoming a leader, expert, or mentor in real life.
Right. So here's the two questions. How many kids get to ask themselves those two questions? And I think that's an important thing that we need to talk about. So without further ado, let me introduce myself real quick. I am Jim Bruner. I am the alpha animal at Mezzacello Urban Farm. I live in the United States in a state called Columbus, or Ohio, in a city called Columbus. And my farm is in downtown Columbus. And I run summer camps around biotechnology, bioengineering, biorenewable energies and policy, and biochemistry. And in 2021, I had the privilege of running a summer camp where I met Isabel and Silas as students. And I will let Isabel and Silas introduce themselves tonight. Isabel?
Hi, my name is Isabel Goeppner, and I also live in Ohio, in Dublin, which is very close to Columbus. And I am 11 years old, and I am in 6th grade. And in 2021, I met Jim at his summer camp, and it was an amazing experience. And then in 2022, he invited me back as an intern, which was an even better experience.
And Silas, would you like to introduce yourself?
I am Silas, and I'm basically just the male version of Isabel. Copy what she said to me.
I'm sorry, Silas, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. What? Tell me about the picture. Isabel, I chose this picture of you because I think it's gorgeous, and it shows how skilled you are with biotech and animals. Amazing. Silas, tell me about your picture.
That picture is of me reading to my pet turtle.
And Silas is one of the best researchers I've ever met. I mean, I know graduate students that would love to be able to research like Silas. And I mean that, dude. You absorb information like a black hole absorbs energy. It's amazing. So let's move on. I got to do this. Go here. Oop, back up. A quick thing about Mezzacello. This will all be on the gift website. I'm not going to read this to you. I do want you to see in the bottom right here, I am Jim Bruner, the alpha animal at Mezzacello. Izzy, why am I the alpha animal?
Because you direct all the animals.
The animals would suffer if I didn't do something, right? Because we have to
Yeah.
keep in artificial conditions because we live in downtown. So yeah, I'm the alpha. And Izzy and Silas, if you want to be beta animals, that's cool. But for now, let's talk about what the challenge was. So the challenge here, this is going to be difficult for me. It was to deal with the fact that Mezzacello is in downtown Columbus. We had to make accommodations. And one of the ways I needed to do that was I needed to be able to train kids and teachers a lot in a very short amount of time about farming and technology. And I also had to train the teachers and the kids in the multiple enclosed ecosystems, because there are 7 of them at Mezzacello. And it was just overwhelming to me. And so one night I was just sitting with some friends and they said, well, your kids are so amazing. This was Deb, Isabel, the woman that came for the tour. She says, well, your kids are like brilliant. Why don't you just have them do it? I'm like, that's the best idea ever. So I went to my boss and my insurance company and my family, and I said, how could I incorporate kids? And they said, only as campers. They can't have positions of responsibility. So I'm like, I disagree, but I'm going to invite kids from my first year to join me as interns. And then I'm going to allow them to both lead and teach, but I'm only going to report that they're interns. I'm not going to tell them that they're leaders. One of the things that we did, and you guys can chime in on this, do you guys remember Leadership Roulette in 2021, where
No.
everybody
Not
had a number?
really.
You do. I'll tell you. We picked a number, and whoever got that number had to be leader for that day. And whoever was the leader the day before, they had to tell you what they knew, and then you had to lead. You decided what was going on, who was doing what. That was really fascinating to me. I
Oh,
should have asked
I
you.
kind of remember it now.
Thank you, Isabel. I don't look dumb or anything. You were amazing. This is why I chose you both. I chose all 4 of you because of Leadership Roulette. So the new staff, got to teach these kids, right? I had adult teachers and I had kid teachers. How do I bring these kids together? And this is what everybody thought was going to happen. And Silas, did that happen? Did we have disaster?
I mean, a chicken escaped. We had to pour hydrogen peroxide into the koi pond. Not too much bad stuff. Like, the worst disaster was probably a chicken escaping or pouring hydrogen peroxide into the fish pond to give them oxygen.
Boom. That is the chemistry, indeed. So, back to Mezzacello in 2021. 2 camps, 2 weeks long, that included these 4 interns. And this is where Leadership Roulette comes in. I chose that word. The guidance counselors and people that I work with really don't like the idea of roulette. But I like Leadership Roulette because even if you weren't ready, someone was there to help you. And that is the future. You don't have to do everything by yourself. There is going to be someone there to help you. And that was the underlying thought about bringing on kid interns to teach other kids. And so Silas and Izzy and Cecilia and Robert all got deep training in all of these systems. They all had the opportunity to lead and follow. All 4 interns knew how to motivate others and mentor kids that might need a little more help. And Silas, when I interviewed you on Wednesday night, do you remember, because I have the video, I can pull it up, but do you remember what you said about what a good mentor is?
Yeah, I think I remember that part.
Can you say it?
Uh,
Izzy, you're going to have a question.
Someone who teaches, but like someone who teaches so that everyone can understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like tweaking the teaching so that it works for anyone.
Indeed. What do you think? What do you think a mentor is? And what do you think of yourself?
I definitely agree with Silas. Like, you need to make sure that the people that you're trying to teach something understands it. And I think you should like tell them if like you don't understand it, then how can I help you understand it?
Correct. Excellent. So, choosing the staff. It wasn't hard to choose because these four were absolutely remarkable. Empathy, intelligence, the ability to synthesize information, the ability to relate to different kinds of people. It was hard to get them to accept. Both of you said no when I initially asked. All four of you did. I'm like, oh, we couldn't do that. I had to convince your parents to convince you to do it. And then once you got there, it was like, oh, okay. But you were like, well, we can't be leaders. And I'm just curious, before I go any further, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but frankly, I don't care because I know you have it in you. What were you afraid about teaching other kids? What were you nervous about initially?
I don't really remember.
Okay.
Me neither, but if you like ask me to do that right now, I would be nervous about like if you get something wrong, then it's really embarrassing because you're supposed to be the teacher. And I feel like in school, the teacher's supposed to know everything and get everything right.
So
but everybody makes mistakes. So
indeed. And that's where I think the line, Isabel, is between teacher, leader, mentor. Teacher wants you to know, a mentor wants you to grow, a leader wants to support you. That's why I think it's important that kids get the opportunity to do all three of those things, because you walked through what you were afraid of and you identified all of the things that weren't real. Each one leads into the next, right? So I chose these two because they possessed a skill. They were natural leaders. They stayed calm under pressure, especially Isabel. They were really smart and could remember details. Like, how do we have to wash rabbits, Isabel? Do you remember? What happens if
you have to cover their ears?
Oh yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's basically like the easiest anesthetic. Cover their ears.
Hold their ears, correct.
Hold their ears down and boom, easy anesthetic. Only works on rabbits though.
And they were very good with the animals. So, Isabel, at this point, do you mind talking about how you made my life so much easier for the chickens?
About the door we made?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell your
So
story.
it was 2021, right?
Correct.
So in 2021, I came into the Mezzacello camp, and for the chicken coop that separated the chicken side and the duck side, there was just a human door with a knob. You had to actually go into the coop to open. So the camp was basically split into three groups. There was team bio, team engineers, and team STEM. And I was on team engineers. So we wanted to make Jim's life easier by making a door that could be opened from outside of the coop. So we designed it on a whiteboard that was inside like a learning shed almost. It was like a shed with a TV and some cubbies to keep our stuff. And we did most of our lessons in there. So we designed it on a whiteboard, and it had tracks that were going like straight up and down, and a door made out of plastic from the greenhouse was in those tracks, and it had a hole on top with a rope that went through it, so you could open and close the door from the outside. And once you pulled the rope up, you could secure it on a double hook that was outside of the chicken coop door. And it was really fun designing it, and the even better part was that we actually got to make it. So like sometimes you just like draw things out and do design things for fun, but the really cool part was that we actually got to be there and see it work. And seeing it work was like amazing. I was blown away. It seemed unreal, and I was so happy and proud of myself and my entire group for making it work because everybody contributed a lot.
Nice. That's exactly how I remember it as well. Silas, do you remember building the whiteboard table with me?
Actually, that's one of the few things I do remember.
Can you talk through what we wanted to do with that? How we built
That's
it, what we
all I remember is the finished product and having to like put hammer stakes into the ground to hold the supports in place. Then we like screwed the whiteboard on.
correct.
That's all I really remember.
That's okay, buddy. I can help. Silas and I modified a whiteboard by turning it over, and we just found these table legs in the alley because I live in a downtown metropolis. Somebody threw table legs away, and we decided we were going to put boards on the table or on the legs and then screw those boards into the whiteboard. So when we turn the whiteboard over, at the end of every camp, the kids have to present to their parents and the public, whoever wants to come see this. And
one time there was a tour. There was a tour. You were hosting a tour, and we had to present to the tour group.
So this table allowed them to stand, write, and describe what they'd learned, which is evidence of learning for teachers. But it was also a really great way to get everybody involved because Silas's idea was to take the whiteboard from a 90-degree interface to a 360-degree interface where kids could be all around it. And then we took a drone and we flew it over the whiteboard and recorded everything as it was happening. Amazing. Silas, that's one of my favorite memories from the summer. Both of those are favorite memories because I was so proud of you for engineering a solution to a really difficult and painful problem for me personally living on a farm. So the multiple talents come out obviously here, right? I just had to train them, and then I had to get the teachers to agree. And if you look at this photograph of the teachers, whom I loved, Miss Jess and Miss Deanna, they were great. Look how nervous they are here. This is when I said, let's call this ball Kid Interns and we'll play. This is actually a photograph. Let me go backwards. This is the innovation that happens when you free kids up from worries about who's the teacher and who's the student, who's the leader and who's the follower. They wanted to play volleyball. So they took my hammock and turned it on its side and locked it in place with a stick. And all the kids are on one side and the teachers were on the other. And I double dog anyone to guess who won that game. It was the kids. So the teachers, they had to learn two things quickly. That learning is something everyone has to do. No matter who you think you are, you have to be able to learn. And if you don't know how to learn, you need to learn to learn. And second, that kids can be mentors as well as being mentored. Both of these young individuals who are presenting with me today are my mentors. I can point to things I learned about myself directly from them because of their actions, their empathy, their care, and their talent. If that doesn't describe a mentor, I can't think of a better way of doing it. So these are two opportunities that the kids had to be mentors, and I'll describe each. If you remember what we were doing, go ahead and talk, but I'm going to talk about Silas first. Silas, this is where you're showing everybody where the strawberry DNA is and explaining what DNA is and why it's a physical construct in that test tube. And obviously they're a bit overwhelmed, but the young gentleman looking at me with the striped shirt, once he got it, he heard everything you said and knew exactly what he was looking at. And I can remember him pulling the DNA out of that test tube and saying, oh my God, DNA is like a real thing. You can collect DNA. Yes, you can collect DNA. And Silas just happened to know everything about deoxyribonucleic acid and how it interacts with RNA and how it interacts with solvents. Silas is an amazing researcher. This is Isabel in the garden explaining to people the life cycle of potatoes, how to harvest them, how to hold them up, how to make sure that the leaves get as much opportunity for photosynthesis as possible, and what the compost is actually comprised of. She learned that last year. She knew exactly what she was talking about, and she was killer. Nobody had any questions, and nobody questioned her. Nobody questioned Silas. That's the world I want to live in. If a kid wants to be an expert, allow them to be an expert, let them lead, and if they can't, mentor them until they can. Let's not produce a world of followers. Let's produce a world of leaders who can also be followers. And to this point, I want to ask both Isabel, I'll call you Isabel. I call her Izzy because I love her, but Isabel and Silas, what do you think is the most important part about a leader in terms of followers?
Maybe like they can figure out how followers are feeling.
Yes.
So like if one of them is confused, they can help clarify things.
Correct.
Or if one of them feels sad, then they can try to cheer them up.
Leaders could also be like, they are a good role model.
Definitely. Silas, something you said in the video that we recorded on Wednesday really stuck with me. And it was that leaders don't have to demand control. They have to earn respect, and they have to care about the people that are following them. Because as you guys were playing leadership roulette and as you were leading this summer, when someone doesn't care about you, are they willing to follow you anymore?
No.
No. Why? Why do you think so? Why do you not want to follow someone who's just bossy?
Because sometimes people get tired of being told, do this, do that. No, you can't go home. No, just do this and just do that.
Thank you for that, Silas.
No one likes that kind of guy.
That's true. Silas, it's Isabel's turn.
Okay.
Go for it, Iz.
People like to lead people that like care about them, because then it makes them feel like they actually matter, which they do. So people want to feel like that. They want to feel like they're important.
Yes. So now that we have a deeper understanding of what young people imagine leadership looks like, let's talk about the thing that you both, all four of you, were so nervous. The idea of an expert, right? What do you think makes an expert? Whoever wants to go first. And Ortal, if you would like to join on this, please do. What do you think makes an expert?
This is an interesting question, and something I've been thinking about is there really an expert? Some people see expert as someone who knows everything and don't have anything to learn anymore. While I kind of disagree with that. I think there's always more to learn. So I think an expert is someone who knows a lot about a particular topic or area and can share it with others and explain it to others in a way that they can understand it, whether they're a 6-year-old, 15-year-old, or 70-year-old. But they're definitely still learning and growing and still on a journey of gaining more knowledge and understanding on that topic.
That's great. I love that. Isabel, what do you think makes an expert, and why can a kid be, and how can a kid become an expert?
I feel like an expert, like Orhel said, it's not someone that knows everything. It's someone that can share to others about what they know, but they can still learn from others because everyone has different mindsets. And even if you think someone's smarter than you, they might be smarter than you on a topic, but you could be smarter than them on a different topic. So everyone just has different minds and learns and grows differently.
Silas, what do you think?
I would say an expert is someone who knows a lot about one thing, but also can still learn, because like if you're an expert, you should be conferring with other experts to like fact check your information. So experts can very well still learn.
So all three of you have said very, very similar things, which I really appreciate. And by the way, it was a trick question. So how is an expert different from a leader? I have an opinion, and I'll definitely share it because I'm presenting. But what do you guys think? How do you think an expert and a leader are different? It's a very complex question. Take the time to think about it.
A leader knows things. Or no, wait, no, an expert knows things, but the leader shows those things.
Cool. That is definitely true. Do leaders challenge experts?
Sometimes.
Do leaders think they deserve or do know better? How does an expert get people to believe in them?
By proving that they can be right.
We call it taking receipts, right? I got the receipts. I know what I'm talking about here. Here's the data. What role can a leader play in making sure that we listen to experts? That people, they don't know, they think they know everything. How could a leader make sure we listen to people that know what they're talking about?
I'll let Izzy answer this one.
Thanks, Silas.
You did it. I watched you do it.
If you're a leader and you want people to listen to an expert, then you can like not take all of the credit. Be like, there's still some things I don't know, but this person does know.
Beautiful. I love that. I'm so glad this is being recorded. Beautiful answer. Elegant, a leader's answer to be sure. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. The thing is, leaders and followers, if you guys remember from Leadership Roulette, you're only a leader until the followers won't listen to you anymore. And the moment the followers don't want to follow you, you're not a leader. The moment the followers want to follow you, they believe in what you're doing, that's when you become a leader. An expert doesn't expect people to follow him or them. They expect people to believe them. And it's the job of leaders to make sure that happens. And I gave a talk earlier today about the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And expert and leadership were all over this, all over it. The one that was not is the one that bridges both of these truths. Who's an expert? Who's a leader? And it is this guy. So we've talked about mentorship. How can we do better to help our society understand that we need both? We need both experts and leaders. How would you mentor a society that says, I don't believe that. I don't want to believe that. That's way too much. That can't be true. And yet the data is there. As a leader or as a mentor, I apologize, how would you convince people, it might be better to just try to suspend your disbelief for a minute and think about what your leader is telling you, or listen to what this expert is telling you. What do you actually know, right? That's where the power of mentorship, I think, is really lost on children and adults. Adults aren't ready for children to tell them truths. But you know what I hear from adults all the time? I hear this all the time. Ortal, tell me if I'm wrong. From the mouths of babes comes wisdom. I hear that all the time. I don't understand why people don't accept children as mentors when we know that you guys don't have any preconceptions in your mind about what is and what isn't acceptable or wrong or right. You see things as they are. You're not struggling the way adults are. You're not compounded by fear. You guys really are free to think about the world as it really looks. And that's what I loved about this summer with you. I keep telling you, you see things differently. I don't mean that you have a mind that's different. It's that I see things worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. You guys live in the now, right? Are you worried about what college you're going to? Are you worried about, are you going to have enough money to put food on the table? No. Should you worry about that? Are there children in the world that are worried about that? Search your feelings. Silas, you say yeah?
I mean,
I
there
agree.
are children in the world that worry about having food on the table.
So
Yeah,
how
that's
can
very
we
true.
help them?
That's what I meant.
How do we help?
How we help?
How do we help?
Make food go boom. Just drop it out of the sky.
Okay.
I mean, that is one way to do it.
Well, what if that is full of watermelons?
Fair.
You've dropped a big package of watermelons out of the sky.
That's why parachutes
I need you to
exist.
think a few steps. So we're adding a parachute, right? What else could we do? What could we invent?
Oh, this has already been invented. Retrograde rockets to slow it down for a much softer touchdown.
Okay, so pause. You're talking about retrograde rockets like what landed Curiosity rover on Mars, or retrograde rockets like what SpaceX uses to land its launching rocket?
You could use either.
How could we convince Elon Musk to use rockets to deliver copious, large, tons of food to other places quickly?
We could say, you're already using the Starship for transport. Now shove some food in there and boom. You've saved lives. Many lives. You're basically ending hunger by shoving some watermelons onto a starship.
That's probably the funniest and greatest thing I've ever heard today. I love that. Isabel, do you have another tactic? What would you do? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I totally
Yeah.
believe in you. Let's give Isabel a break. Ortal, what do you think we could do? And then I'll tell you what I think we should do.
I would actually start by exploring the problem. It's first, before we jump into ideas and solution, we need to really understand the problem. So why is there hunger in the world? What's the reason for that? That's the first thing I would do. Go to these places, countries where people suffer hunger, live with them for a while, really understand the day-to-day life, what are the challenges, why they don't have enough food. And only once I get a true understanding of the problem and really understand the life, we can look into solution together with them. how we can help them overcome this problem. So only by really understanding the problem and understanding the people who face that problem, we can think about solution with them as to how we can help them solve that problem.
That's a very elegant diplomatic answer, and I love it. And that's being an expert, a leader, and a mentor simultaneously, right? Listening, learning, acting thoughtfully, trying to solve a problem with a full understanding of what the problem actually is. And this is where we need to work with kids on developing that sense that there are steps that we have to take. I've only started this process. This was a test case. I hope to expand it and include kids more in the planning of camps and curriculum so that I can give them opportunities to look at problems and do exactly what you just suggested, because we don't give kids enough opportunity to do that, in my opinion. We tell them what the answers are, and then they think they know until we challenge them on what is a leader, what is an expert, what's a mentor, and then they don't have enough data. So could any kid do this? What's your instinct, Isabel? Could any kid do what you did this summer?
I think yes, but only if they have the right training. Like, you have to take little steps up before you can really make it, basically.
I mean, that's how all animals that are born on this planet learn to walk and thrive, right? With the exception of a few complex mammals like horses, and there's another animal that comes out ready to go. Can't remember what it is, but they can walk as soon as they're born. So we all have to take baby steps. All of us need to learn. We need to remember that. Everyone's learning. And that's why I think it's so important that we talk about mentorship, leadership, and expert in the same sentence, because it's required for all of them to be effective. You need to be able to tap into the truth of all three of those things, right? So to do any of that, and Orthal, I'm so grateful for you, because that is what you described is the design cycle, right? We have to brainstorm the problem and understand what it actually is so we know what we're solving. We can't just talk about ending hunger and then just act, because it's a wicked problem. It's so complex, it's not solvable by one path. It has to take multiple paths because there are multiple problems in the world. Then we have to design or do some research first, design a solution and build it. And this is where I think being an expert as a kid, or being asked to be a leader as a kid, or being asked to be a mentor as a kid, this next step, analyze, is so important, because it allowed these kids to step outside of the problem and look at it. What are you asking me to do? What are you asking me to teach? Can I do this? And then once they knew they could step back in and just do it. And then after they did it, they could ask questions. Did I do that right? Was I good enough? Was that the right answer? They modify. And then they do it again. And that is how
Sorry, I feel like that's like exactly what happened with the chicken coop door. That's like all the steps we did, and we learned about the design cycle in camps.
Yes. And so to Isabel's point, I have since modified the chicken door again. Now the chicken door has an Arduino on it with a timer that I can program from my remote on my phone. And it has a piston that pulls up when I tell it to open and pushes down when I tell it to close. And I have another door for the ducks because I don't want the chickens and ducks together. Isabel, do you remember me telling you why I don't want the chickens and ducks together?
Yeah, it's because the chickens will peck open the ducks' eggs and he won't have any new ducks.
Correct. Ducks can't fly. They lay their eggs on the ground. The chickens are bored and they start pecking eggs. And that leads to a bigger problem, to what Arthal was talking about, understanding the entire complex problem. The moment chickens start pecking eggs, they stop laying. So it not only affects the amount of duck eggs I have, it affects the amount of chicken eggs I have, because the chickens don't lay because they know if they lay, one of the other chickens is going to eat their egg. They have a bad behavior now. So one of the projects this summer is modifying the coop so that the ducks have their own enclosure and the chickens have their own enclosure. And in the duck enclosure, it'll be exactly the same as the chicken enclosure, except for one modification that I had to do some analysis and research on. All of the chickens have bands on their leg, so I can tell how old they are. Because some chickens I use for food, other chickens I use for eggs. Every chicken will have a magnet on that band. The door for the ducks will have a Hoy sensor on it that detects a magnetic field. When it does, it sprays air and scares chickens away, but it doesn't spray when ducks go in. What's the one thing we know about chickens, Izzy?
They're chicken.
They're chicken. They're afraid. The moment I do that, and I've tested this, they run and they don't go in. And I just got to train them not to go in there. That will solve that problem. But I also have to replace the chickens because they have bad habits and they're not laying anymore. So that's just the reality. And I learned all of that. All of that we just talked about, I learned through the design cycle. This is why we need leaders and experts and mentors to start coming together and talking to each other as equals. Not I'm this, or I'm this, or I'm this. We don't need a world of silos anymore. We need a world of siluses, but not silos. And so that brings me to the end of this presentation. Isabel, is there anything else you want to add? Something you are passionate about? Or Silas, either one.
I feel like the biggest thing that I learned while designing and building the chicken coop door was to try new things even if you don't feel like you'll succeed, because especially if you don't think you'll succeed, because if you feel like you won't do it right, then you'll never get the opportunity to actually try it out. So you never know, it could end up being a passion.
Okay, Silas,
And
you
I
know
like
you're on.
and I like
Everyone,
and I like seeing the animals.
okay. So what was your favorite thing about the camp this summer, Silas? Do you remember? You kind of talked.
Probably the animals and the people.
Ooh, tell me about the people.
There were a lot of really nice people. And I'm not normally a very social person, but that was like the perfect mix of social and solo. Because I could do some things on my own, but other than that, I would have to be social.
Right. And I love that about you because we're very similar that way. I have so much patience and then I'm done. I don't want people anymore. I live on a farm in the middle of a downtown city for a reason. But can we talk real quick about the fish? You were talking about the hydrogen peroxide. How did we check on the fish? Do you remember what we did?
If they were coming up for air.
Right. They were gasping. How did we look under the water?
Oh, long stick with a phone at the end.
The phone's waterproof. It has a video. I don't have to broadcast anywhere. The problem with filming underwater is that the radio waves from the Wi-Fi phone, they can't penetrate the water. So this is something I want to work on this summer. I want to create a rig that is wired, and I want it to be on that shark. We got to figure out a way.
The robo shark.
On that shark. I have that shark. It's perfectly engineered to swim in the water, and the fish don't know what a shark is, so they won't be afraid of it. But I'd like to be able to monitor the fish a little bit more. So that's one thing I want to fail at and get better at this summer. So just putting that out there in the universe. Let's look. Do we have any comments on YouTube?
I actually have a few questions.
Oh, great.
Firstly, I want to say that I really, really enjoy this presentation. This is amazing. And I wish I could have been there with you in that summer camp. It looks so awesome. And I love animals as well, so I'm sure I would have enjoyed it. So I have a question for Isabel. Isabel, if another child your age would ask you about this camp, what do you think, and whether they should go to that camp, what would you tell them?
I would say absolutely, because one, I learned a lot about science, like science in general, ecosystems, and animals, because I live in a suburb, so we don't really get a lot of experience with that kind of stuff. But a downtown farm is really cool because you don't usually see them. And I learned a lot from this camp, and I met a lot of people that were really nice, and I enjoy being with like Jim.
I can understand why. And do you think it has, having that experiencing that summer camp has changed you in any way?
Yeah, I feel like when I first went to that camp, I was like kind of nervous about how people felt about me, but he like taught me how I can be a leader without like being bossy.
This is an important skill to have, definitely. And after this summer camp, going back to your, day-to-day life and school, do you feel different in terms of how you interact with other children in the classroom or with your teachers?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes during projects, I could feel like I could take more of a lead and like ask people to do things without being necessarily bossy, but like in a nice way. So I feel like that really helped me in my just day-to-day life.
This is fantastic. And Silas, I want to hear from you because you look to me like an animal lover. Can you tell me more about your experience at the summer camp with the animals?
I got to bathe the chicken and try to get a chicken after it escaped. And I got to bathe a rabbit. I got to do a lot of things.
What is the most interesting things you learn about animals during that summer camp?
One of the best anesthetics for rabbits is just holding their ears down.
I didn't know that. So you taught me something new.
Yeah, their motor reflexes freeze if you touch their ears. Just hold their ears, you won't panic.
Wow.
Isabel, may I have your permission to show a photograph of you? It's a great photograph, promise.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is from the summer camp that Isabel was in this summer. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see the photo.
This is Isabel leading a camp of programmers and 3D engineers, 3D printing and designing. This is what happens when you expose kids to the opportunity of being not only an expert, but a leader and a mentor. There's compassion and empathy, and they are all sharing in this. Oh, I'm looking, Brent's there too. I didn't notice that. But yeah, so I can't lie. I'm very proud of this photograph, but it's also an amazing photograph because it shows precisely why I'm so passionate about this particular topic. We need patience, grace, and guidance on allowing kids to be the leaders that we want them to be. They will not be the leaders that we need if we don't allow them the opportunity. Silas, I'm about to take you off. You need to control yourself. Please. Everyone can see you and you're distracting me.
Okay, sorry.
Please. So This is what it means to expose kids to opportunities to be change agents in the world. And it isn't as dangerous or hard as people think. You just need to meet the personality with the challenge and talk about it and allow kids to experience it and then allow them to share in the process. And that is why I love that photograph, Isabel Goeppner. You are doing precisely what I wanted you to learn to do with those kids. You are allowing them to feel like they are following someone worth following and that they matter. And Silas, you do the same thing when you share information. I just wish you had a monitor that you could see what you look like right now. Stop doing that. So, any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Isabel. So you've been through quite a journey, an amazing journey, and I want to hear from you, what were your challenges along the way?
Like sometimes I like to just tell people what to do because it's easier than trying to connect with them and understand how they feel. So that was definitely one of my challenges, like trying to feel people's feelings so I could adjust to that and make sure they weren't feeling like I was being very bossy.
I love your honesty. Thank you. Yeah, it is completely understand where you're coming from. Were there any other challenges along the way once you were on this learning journey with Jim?
Yeah, like I said already, there are a lot of people that were smarter than me, especially Silas. Silas is super smart, and it intimidated me a lot until I realized we all have different mindsets, and some things that I don't know I can make up for by trying to learn them.
Yeah, it's important, and you are super smart and amazing. It's important to know that no one is smarter than you. Maybe they're better at doing a particular thing or they have more knowledge, but definitely you are super smart and you're so capable, and I'm so impressed with you and what you're capable of doing and what you learned during that short time with Jim. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, if I can just jump in for a second, Isabel, you can unmute yourself, Isabel. It's okay. You keep muting yourself. What you have to do is sort of what Jim Bruner has been doing. Okay, he isn't telling you what to do, but he's guiding you in such a way that you essentially find your own direction. You know what I mean? He's not saying you do this because I'm telling you to do this, but he's putting you in an environment and giving you the support and the guidance so that you find your own journey and you find your own way. So, you know, he's leading from behind is what he's doing. Is that a good analysis, Jim?
I think so, and thank you. And Isabel, if I may, let me introduce you to my very dear friend, Jake. Jake, this is Isabel. Isabel is Jake. Jake's one of the founders of the Global Innovation Field Trip. And this is Isabel's first time doing something on this scale. So, I mean, she's normally far more ebullient, and not that she's not, but I know she's a little nervous, but Jake, that's exactly what I want. I want to allow kids to experience the thrill of being a whole person without waiting to become someone.
And that's why everyone loves you.
No one ever has to ask for permission. I have a saying that no one should ask permission to be fabulous. Show up. Nobody has to ask permission to exist. They just need the grace and time and dignity to do so. And that's what I want everyone to have the opportunity to understand. And I know it's hard when we're talking about lots and lots of people and big school districts and entire countries and huge pressing problems. But like I said earlier today, nothing changes if we don't start somewhere. It has to start somewhere. And that's the best I can do.
This is fantastic, Jim. And if I can, you mentioned at some point in your presentation about the teachers, and I want to learn more about your work with the teachers. If you can just elaborate on that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I had 2 generations of teachers, and to be fair, I worked during the day at the PAST Foundation, which is an applied STEM educational research and development lab here in Columbus, Ohio. And I love my job. I'm really good at it. And I work with amazing teachers who teach me things every day. I didn't invent this. I learned most of it from those colleagues. But I got a grant to allow me to hire teachers to teach these camps. And so the first cohort of teachers I hired as what in America are called pre-service teachers. They're just finishing their graduate degree in education, and they haven't taught in a school yet. So
oh, Jim, you froze.
One of the experiences were economics and food, and they were very, very nervous. And that's when I realized I need kids to help me, because if I get teachers that are afraid to teach next year, I don't know what I'm going to do, right? Here, worked out, and I got a phenomenal STEM teacher, Miss Deanna, who's really good. And I got another teacher who isn't a formal teacher yet. She's pre-service as well, but she grew up on a farm and she knew everything, but she didn't know the technology. And that's where Isabel and Silas were invaluable, because they understood the technology and they could explain it to them. And I had trained both those teachers. That look on that volleyball game was real. They're like, say what? We're going to be co-teaching with children? Is that legal? I'm like, it's not illegal. It's just not done yet. But they loved it. They both loved it, and they both want to come back next year. So yeah, it was a learning curve. You know, because I know pedagogy, I know Bloom's taxonomy, I know a lot of that. I just don't get the chance to apply it. And I understand instincts, and I am on the spectrum, so I'm not very good at picking up social and emotional cues. That's one of the ways that Silas is a huge help to me and a mentor, because I just recently learned that. I was diagnosed recently. I just thought I was a spaz my whole life. No, I just see things differently. And as Isabel said so elegantly, we all think differently and we come at things from different ways. And so the teachers kind of had to learn that too. And it was painless. We created a friendly environment where everybody could thrive and nobody had to suffer. And that is the way the world should be.
Do you know what were the teachers' concerns? You mentioned that they were a bit apprehensive about it. So what were they worried about? Two large ones. The first was, would these kids have positions of authority? No, they're minors and not coal miners. They're young, so no. They are subject matter experts and interns. They help me. You do not report to them. They help you help me. You both work for me. So I just became a superintendent, basically, a principal, which was kind of interesting for me. And I hadn't thought about it that way at all until you just said that. I'm like, I was a principal. But neither here nor there. The second thing was that they'd never seen this before and they didn't know how they should respond. And they were worried that these kids were going to be snotty upstarts and they were going to be hard to control and that they wouldn't have any authority in the space and it was dangerous. I'm like, that's not going to be the case, I promise you. I vetted these children. It's good. And the third thing was they were worried about economic impacts. What if one of these kids gets hurt? Who's responsible for that? Well, if we lead with that, we're never going to get anywhere. If we worry about who's going to get hurt all the time, rather than have a sense of whimsy, a sense of adventure, and know that I know this farm and no one's going to get hurt, trust me, trust yourselves, but most importantly, trust these kids. And that pretty much
laid everything for both cohorts. And what it took. So I can see a white paper on owning a farm and running learning labs. And when you become a principal and when you eventually become a superintendent and have to run multiple of these, I'm going to need a mentor for that for sure, because that's not my wheelhouse at all. Is patience my strength?
Not really.
Well, it's not. And I know this about myself. I know this about myself. I know what my weaknesses are. And that's an important part of leadership. Silas said it himself. It's important to know what you know and what you don't know. And what you do know, act on it. That's what makes you, and it's okay to be wrong. If that doesn't work, try something different, but be willing to try. And that, to your point, or all about the teachers, is I had to make them willing to try. You've got to be willing to try. If you've never done this before, what do you got to lose? It's on my dime.
Your secret. How did you help them open their mind and being willing to try something new and scary? What did you do?
Can I be very frank?
Yes.
I told them I wouldn't pay them. I won't hire you. If you're not willing to do this, I won't hire you. I can't. You don't believe in this mission. I'm here to change the world. You have to be on board with that, or you can't be part of this project. These kids put themselves out there in a way that was very vulnerable, and they don't have a problem with it. You need to get over it. You need to be on board or out. I didn't say it quite that way, but I said, I can't fulfill this contract if you're not willing to go along with this premise. And I know we can't do that in the real world, but I don't live in the real world. I live at Mezzacello, and I'm creating a model that we could apply to the real world. But first we have to get over our sense of fear and trepidation about the future of teaching and learning. And we have to believe that these kids are the future, and not just hope they are one day. Train them to be the future you want to see. Give them the opportunity to fail and let them fail gracefully and learn from that. And don't be so afraid of not doing it right. Because the reality is the world we're inheriting, you and I, and especially these kids, it's impossible for us to know everything. It's impossible. Things are evolving far too quickly. The best option is to allow the kids to participate in this contact sport we call education. Let them know what it feels like to be a teacher, a leader, a mentor, a subject matter expert, and then allow them to grow. And don't just worry about monetizing it or getting grades or, I'm sorry, I can't go on any further. I'm out of my depth, but I have feelings.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you say, Jim, and this is definitely the right way to go. And we need to help educators around the globe overcome these fears and concern and just take the first steps on this wonderful adventure. Unfortunately, I have to leave now. I really enjoyed spending that hour with all of you, and I've learned so much, and this is just amazing. And Isabel and Silas, you should be so proud of yourself for how much you've grown and how much you learn when you spend that time with Jim. This is fantastic.